Hello, Sanbonani. My name is Lungsan Hlongwa, and we are headed toward the end of the month of October. And I'm sharing the sort of final ideas and some of my favorite ideas from the book of the month, which is The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. And yeah, today I'm sharing an idea that I absolutely love and I find incredibly fascinating and interesting. Yeah, so here it goes. The title of the chapter is Confront Your Dark Side, the Law of Repression. This is the first paragraph. People are rarely who they seem to be. Lurking beneath their polite, affable exterior is inevitably a dark shadow, consisting of the insecurities and the aggressive, selfish impulses they repress and carefully conceal from public view. This dark side leaks out in behavior that will baffle and harm you. Learn to recognize the signs of the shadow before they become toxic. See people's overt traits, toughness, saintliness, etc., as covering up the opposite quality. You must become aware of your own dark side. In being conscious of it, you can control and channel it. Channel the creative energies that lurk in your unconscious. By integrating the dark side into your personality, you will be a more complete human and will radiate an authenticity that will draw people to you. That's the sort of premise and sort of summary of this chapter. And it's this idea of the dark side. It's an idea that I find incredibly fascinating. It's an idea that has been written about quite a bit by Robert Greene, who of course wrote this book. But another person that speaks about it quite often is a man by the name of Jordan Peterson, the sort of public intellectual and incredible writer and author that he is. But this is a very, very interesting idea. And the premise of the idea is that we all have two sides to our being. There's, of course, the sort of front side, the side that we put forth, the side that is light, so to speak, the side that is soft, the side that is kindness, that is cordiality, that is respect, that is affability, that is just niceness, and pleasantness, and things of that sort, right? And there is, however, another side of our being, which is the dark side, and the psychologist extraordinaire that was Carl Jung spoke about this and wrote about this quite often. Spoke about the shadow, which is the other side, the dark side, and the dark side is characterized by aggression, by anger, by resentment, by sort of dark emotions like envy and jealousy, and things of that sort. And it's unpleasant, and we get trained from very, very early on in our lives to suppress that side, and to put forth a front and a facade of the sort of light and pleasant and respectable and cordial side of things, right? But the problem that arises is that we have both sides, and just because we've been trained to not outwardly be aggressive, just because we've trained to sort of hide our anger and hide our dark side and repress our dark side, that doesn't mean it no longer exists. It still exists, and the more we repress it, the more that we push it to the side, the stronger and the larger it becomes, and we will find yourself, or we find ourselves in situations where the shadow leaks out. You'll have a friendship, for example, with someone, and all of a sudden your friend says something that absolutely stuns you, that almost comes out of nowhere, and you just, you're boggled, like, how could this person say something like that? I mean, they're my friend, and that exists in every single one of us, even yourself. For example, you'll do something and you'll say something, and after that you'll say things like something came over me, right? And the reality of it is that no, the thing that came over you is not something from outside of you, because that's how it presents itself. But it's something that is on the inside of you, a thing that is part of who you are, that has been repressed for so long that it forces itself to find expression. And it finds expression when you are most vulnerable, under stress, or any difficult period of time. But it finds expression itself, and then it's dangerous, because at that particular moment in time you're not in control of it. You don't have any influence over it, right? So the book is of course about human nature, and it speaks about the realities and the truth of who we are as humans, and this dark side is part of who we are. It's part of being a human being, and all of us have it. Then the question becomes, how do you deal with it? How do you handle it, right? And the thing that Robert Greene says in this book, principally, and it's a thread that exists throughout the book, which is self-awareness. The first step is always self-awareness, the ability to be aware of your own dark side, to be aware of your own shadow, right? And be able to be aware of other people's shadows as well, and other people's dark side, and incorporating your own shadow into your being, allowing it to have expression, right? And infusing it into your personality. And by doing so, you become a more authentic human being. You become a more complete human being. You become a much more charismatic, much more engaging, and much more interesting and fascinating and captivating human being. You become a real human. Like when you speak and you engage with people, people can listen to you and hear you and feel as though like they're actually speaking to a real human being, and not somebody who's just reciting a speech of sort, or is just reading a speech. But there's an authenticity that radiates from you and that attracts people to you. And there's a couple of people that he speaks about in this chapter. There's a couple of them actually, but I'll just mention a few. For the first person would be Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was, of course, the president of the United States of America back in the 1800s, in around 1860 to around 1864 when he was assassinated. And he's considered to be one of the greatest presidents the United States of America have ever had. And he too identified that he had a dark side and he had a soft side. On the one side, he had a part of him that was soft, that was light, that loved poetry, that had empathy, that was incredibly sensitive. And just hated anything that was cruel. But he also had a flip side to him, which was more aggressive. And that sort of aggressive side translated or exemplified itself in the form of his love and passion for boxing, and his appetite for debate, for aggressive debate, and excoriating his opponents in a sort of and maligning his opponents, But then he realized how he could incorporate this. He transformed his soft and light side into a deep empathy toward the people that he served, the people that he led, and he transformed his more darker side into his ability to carry out debates against his opponents, to be able to systematically argue his points and articulate himself in a clear manner, in a precise manner, in a manner that would make sure that he was always portrayed as somebody who was competent and somebody who was the ideal leader for the people that he served, And the dark side finds itself expressed in a number of different people in the sporting realm as well. So it's not political leaders or anything of that sort only, but it was the thing that propelled people like Kobe Bean Bryant, thing that propelled and was largely the consequence of the success and the brilliance of Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Like, these are both incredibly competitive human beings that had an incredible aggressive nature in them. And what they did with their dark side and their aggressive nature is that they incorporated it into their competitiveness and channeled it into self-discipline and channeled it into being the winners and the champions that they began, or that they became rather, on the basketball court, right? We see this dark side in people like Malcolm X, for example. And there's a piece that I want to read that sort of exemplifies this sort of ability that Malcolm X was able to sort of incorporate into his being. And this is what he says, Robert Greene, about Malcolm X, that is: do not be afraid to use your anger in your work, particularly if it is allied to a cause or if you are expressing yourself through something creative. It is often the sense of contained rage that makes an orator so effective. It was the source of much of the charisma of Malcolm X. In your expressive work, never shy away from anger, but capture and channel it, letting it breathe into your work a sense of life and movement. In giving expression to such anger, you will always find an audience. And then finally, the dark side is the thing that informed our leader as South Africans in our country, our late great President Rolihlahla, Nelson Mandela, back in the 1960s, to decide to abandon non-violence and to pick up arms, and to say so in no uncertain terms, ukuthi ayihlome, let us arm ourselves and fight against the apartheid regime, which was a regime that was oppressive, that was murderous, that was diabolical, accepting the reality of the fact that it was not going to be appropriate to only use non-violence because of the level of violence that was being perpetrated by the apartheid system. The ability to say, you know what, at this particular moment in time, we have to abandon this philosophy, we have to abandon this sort of way of going about things, and we have to arm ourselves, we have to pick up arms, and we have to train ourselves to be able to have the ability, the capacity to inflict damage to an oppressive and exploitative and diabolical regime. And that ability to be able to integrate the dark energy, the dark side into your being was the key to the foundation of the armed wing of the African National Congress at that particular moment in time, which was Umkhonto Wesizwe. And maybe you might say that the barrel of the gun was not what brought about the democracy that we have today. And to that, what I would say is the fact that the capacity was had, the fact that the organizations that were leading, not only the ANC, of course, but other organizations, the fact that they had decided that they were going to enhance their capacity and skill sets to incorporate that ability made the plane and the negotiating table different. Because of that ability, they were able to be in a better position than they would have been had they just been harmless. Because, as Jordan Peterson says quite a lot of times, that in order to be good, you need to be dangerous. In order to be good, you need to have the ability, the capacity for damage, the capacity for harm, and consciously decide not to harm and not to destroy, but you need to have the capacity, you need to have the ability. And that's the idea of the dark side, to be aware of it, to know about it, to incorporate it into your creative work, to incorporate it into your cause, into whatever work that you do, and not to repress it, because If you repress it, it will show up and it will dominate you, and you will not know what came over you. And you will say things like something came over you, that you don't know where it comes from. And the answer to that is that actually it's nothing from outside of you. It's actually something that is on the inside of you, something that is a part of who you are as a human being, that we all have, which is our shadow, which is our dark side. And better to incorporate it, to understand it, and to allow it to infuse your work and your life with energy, because there's an incredible amount of energy that can be gleaned from this dark side, rather than suppressing it and being a victim of it. You can incorporate it, and it can be your ally, and you can achieve greatness with it as your partner, as your ally. And yeah, that's the idea of the shadow. That's the idea of the dark side. Let me know what you think about this idea. It's an idea that I find incredibly fascinating and interesting, as I've said, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are. And I'll see you in the comment section, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers. Have a very, very good day.